Thank you, 5.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Mass Effect 2164, which, by sheer coincidence, because of course of action and how everything's played out this
And roll the
session,
dice.
and the roll of the dice, because we roll it raw here on 2164. You see all the dice roll on screen and in this little chat bar right here. So this is actually the final hour of this campaign, meaning our next session will be a different campaign set in the same world, slightly further into the future, with very different characters. But that's not for now, that's for later. For now, you guys make your way back to the Stalingrad. You get everybody into it. The tubes of the people, the corpse of Carmine, Svedka's body, Lena, of course, carrying Carmine, bringing him straight to the medical bay, and just like putting him on the table and just be like, you need to help? It's just kind of like gesturing at him, kind of like somewhat hopelessly, but like specifically looking at the medical staff that he spent the most time with, whoever it was she knew was like his closest friend. She's like, just do something. It's Carmine. And just kind of like, after like standing directly in the way for a few moments, because like her wits are not about her, she eventually just kind of like storms out of the room and starts heading off somewhere else. She will walk past Rockwell, who is kind enough to be holding her rifle, and will just like, without saying anything, to just like pull it out of his arms, like in a very angry fashion, and head straight down to the shooting range and not leave. Just not leave. She's going to bring this gun to its fucking limits and see what it is she can do. She's this, at one point in time, after like she gets rid of the initial rage, she sets up like a little hollow thing of just fucking Batarians over there, and she's just fucking blasting away at Batarians and just, yeah, she's kind of working through her shit at her moments down there. Svedka is brought into the middle of the medical bay area and whatnot, and they hook her up to the machines and like, we've got brain activity. There's a pulse. It's just extremely faint. They start hooking her up to all this equipment to try to save Svedka, doing everything they can to try to save her. There's this like weird soot on her, and of course everybody's wearing their gloves. But one of the things, because Rockwell obviously would kind of like go in behind them, he himself needs to be looked at. He got fucked up too. You see, as they have their gloves on, they're touching the soot and everything that's on her. It like gets stuck to their gloves, sticks to their gloves. As they move it a little bit, it kind of like plumes outwards a little bit, and they don't seem too concerned about it because they're just thinking it's probably dirt or whatever it is while they're doing this. Does Rockwell say anything?
What Rockwell does is like, careful, that stuff's psychotic.
Psychotic? Psychoactive?
Same deal, right? She walked into a cloud of that stuff and went absolutely mad, went into a blood rage or something similar. Couldn't tell friend from foe, more or less.
Fuck, we need her in the OR. Ah, shit. All right, send her to the send her to the cleaning container, and they like pick up her little bed that she's on, like grav lifted up, and they move her over into this. It almost looks like an MRI chute where they put her into the thing, and it seals shut, and it makes this like swirling wind effect that's like swirling all of it around her and like pulls it through a vacuum on the other side, and it starts hitting her with all these sanitizing things, and it really just cleans everything off of her. But the problem is like for this container to do its full job, it takes like a very critical 10 to 15 minutes.
Which is the time to save.
Which is the time that you should be spending saving people. When they finally get her back out, they hook her up to the machines, they start doing their operation and doing everything they can to try to like pull out the bits of shrapnel that are inside of her. If they could pull them out, if not, they leave them where they are, applying the metagel, doing everything that they need to do to try to save her. Rockwell, they're treating your new wounds and inform you that your old wounds are going to have to wait, because there's much more important
at this point
things.
he's like, literally just get me active. I need to be on the bridge.
And so they're doing that, working on you. They bring in the pieces of Johnson, not like because it's fun to operate on them or anything like that. It's literally it's for the purpose of incinerating. It's for the purpose of being able to send his remains back to his family with his dog tags and stuff like that. Like they bring it in because this part of this facility, the back part of it, also acts as a morgue where they can incinerate the body and whatnot. So where you guys can do your appropriate ceremonies. So they do start working on that. So all of this is happening for an extended period of time. When you finally leave, about 4 hours later on, Carmine's still there, appropriately been cleaned and pushed off to the side and sent into the morgue and whatnot. Johnson's already been incinerated. There was no reason to wait. His incineration happened relatively quickly. And what's her name? Svedka is still being operated on. Lena also needed medical aid, but she's off. Out. You know, she's downstairs just firing her weapon. So, and at one point in time, a medical assistant will come in and be like, yeah, she's not coming. I told her we need to look at her injuries. She's not coming. You know what I mean?
Fine for a day.
Yeah. So
give her time to cool down.
So you yourself are going to eventually be brought up to par and be sent with your drugs and everything out to the bridge, where the ship is no longer in orbit of the planet, no longer on the planet, of course, no longer in orbit of the planet. It's actually traveling. It's making its way over towards the mass relay itself. When you finally come onto the bridge, the captain kind of gives orders to everybody around him to continue doing what it is that they're doing, and then will turn and walk immediately off the bridge and says, "Follow me." To you.
I do, yeah.
And brings you to his own private quarters, his own meeting area that's right outside of his private quarters. And when he walks in, you know, he turns to you as you actually he opens the door and lets you go in first, and then he follows in behind you, shuts the door into the meeting area, and he looks at you and he's like, "How are you?"
Better or worse, I'll be fine. Lena will be fine.
You look like shit. How are you?
You know, I kind of like the scar. Is that weird? It's probably the drugs.
It's not unheard of. It's probably the drugs. You scared the shit out of me out there.
I have a newfound respect for command. I can say that for certain.
Listen, we're heading back. We're heading back to the Vesuvius. You're getting off of duty for a while. You need to go to school, finish your officer training, get yourself a safer post, at least for the next several years. As it is, the reports that I'm going to have to send up, and you and I both know that your parents are going to see these. I was afraid for a minute I was going to be knocking on your parents' door again.
I have no objections about a safer post. I don't want to cause them any more heartbreak either.
There's like a awkward pause for a few moments, and then he actually comes in and embraces you, but it's like a really hard embrace. I mean, you guys grew up together. You guys were kids that grew up together. He's always been older than you or whatever, but you've known each other for a long fucking time. You know what I mean? And there's been some intense tension between you guys for the past X number of years, especially since you got stationed onto the ship. But this is an old friend of yours. And when he holds you, it's one of those it's like mom thought you got into a car accident holds.
It's like I didn't realize I needed a hug until I was hugged kind of hug. Yeah, for sure. No, it's straight there's an embrace. There's a need for that, honestly.
After it's like that, again, extended period hug, after it finally rests, he says to you, "I'm going to need a mission report, but for fuck's sake, go sleep."
Romo does this sort of briefly laugh and is like, "I'll have it to you by tomorrow noon."
Okay.
And walks out. He walks out and he goes at the door and kind of stops and then he salutes and leaves.
Okay. And so you go and you get your sleep, you get your rest for the day and whatnot. When you swing back by the next day or whatever it is, after you get sleep for an extended period of time because you have loads of good drugs, when you finally like swing back by the medical area to see how things are going on, you can see Svedka is still unconscious. She's not regained consciousness yet. They're doing what they can, keeping her in a coma, trying to do what they can to bring her back. Remember, this is a world. The ship is effectively a world that is tech level 4, right?
Yeah.
Like they have amazing medical stuff that we don't have in real life in existence there. They can 3D print functioning organs and have VI's laser put them into people with perfect precision and DNA matching it. They're doing what they can to try to keep her alive in keeping her comatose while making their way to the Vesuvius. The Vesuvius having bits of TL5 technology to try to once again try to save her. So that's what you notice. Eventually the next day you are able to meet with the captain again and deliver your report to him for what had happened. When you do deliver your report to him, he actually expects you to meet him on the bridge while he's overlooking things. Finally, the ship the next day has gotten to the point where it's pretty fucking close to the mass relay. It just takes a while to get to these things. Where it's pretty fucking close to the mass relay, and it's going to be jumping through it at some point in time later this day. So as you make your way to the ship, sorry, to the bridge, and you see him standing there, he looks over, he sees you, and just kind of like looks next to himself, expecting you to stand next to him the way he always does.
Yeah, I'll do that.
And so when you go up and you stand next to him, he says, Rockwell. He says, Petty Officer 3rd Class Rockwell. Aside from the fact that you have caused untold amounts of damage to this facility down below, and there's been loss of life, and even one of my closest crew members is barely holding on to the brink of it, explain to me what had happened down on that planet. We need the details. All of us do. Gesturing towards the open bridge.
Well, it's all in the report, but if you want me to repeat, we were hit by a warhead. We crashed. Through the talents of all of us, we made it into the city, breached it, used tunnels under the city with the assistance of the locals who were none too happy about the Batarian threat either. Reached that hangar where we engaged the Batarians who were smuggling humans wherever they were. During that, Svetka was, what's the word? Exposed to a red chemical substance that I have samples of for the labs on the Vitruvius. And during that, the last Batarians on the ship decided to do self-destruct to destroy all of the threat. I assume they realized that they were no match for us, and in that, Lena, Ward, and James Carmine went above and beyond, risking themselves for saving of the trapped individuals. And they did so at the cost of Carmine's life.
Have you read the medical reports of what it is that's happening to those people inside the tubes? Which, by the way, out of the 35 tubes that could have been held by the grav lift, there are 28 survivors. There's a 29th, but they're not expected to survive through the end of the day.
When we were planet-side, they were simply in a sort of sleep-like stasis and could wake up and be fully functional. Is that not the case now?
We haven't awoken them because of what it was that we had discovered, and we don't really have the facilities to handle them here. At the Vesuvius, they'll be able to be woken. The containers, they're keeping them in a medical coma, one that would not harm them, except there is a chemical in there that's generally used to... There's early research for gene therapy. There are actually, it's illegal. It's very illegal in accordance to Alliance standards, but there is research for gene therapy to exist. Anything beyond maybe making sure that your child has blonde hair and blue eyes is very illegal. That being said, those chemicals, those compounds, are being pumped into them, allowing their genetics to be a little bit more mutable than they would be otherwise. They're more accepting of other things that are happening. And that sand that you're referring to, that powder, is also being introduced into their atmosphere. What the fuck happened with Svedka?
That substance, he kind of pauses and is like, Svedka was unhinged beginning the mission, but manageable. Occasionally, we all know that controlled rage is a valuable tool. When exposed to the substance, there was no control, and her implant seemed to... The power was amplified, but to a dangerous degree. It took a toll on her. She even attacked Ward. We had to tranquilize her just so we could escape without her attacking us. It's not the best situation, but a crack in her helmet let her get exposed to this red sand.
Stuff sounds... I've heard reports of this before. It seems as though this was a manufacturing facility for it.
Absolutely.
I've heard reports of it before. I don't know where it had come from. Perhaps it's Batarian scientists, which sounds like an oxymoron, that had developed it. But here it is. On Moros. In droves.
It's some kind of... it affected her mind. Perhaps it's highly addictive. Perhaps that's why they're pulling it into the ecosystem of their slaves in stasis. Make their slaves addicted so that they need to work for them.
We'll discover more of what this is. I read your report about Carmine. It's very unfortunate. It's very unfortunate. You were relieved from duty until such a time that the admirals see otherwise. You are on medical leave. You are not to handle any of the transitions, any of the responsibilities. I think you've done enough harm.
Rocco will actually laugh at that, which is very not, don't do that, and probably get some weird looks, and just nods, and permission to leave the bridge.
He just looks towards the door.
Yeah, just leaves.
Okay. And you leave. You guys eventually do jump through the mass relay. If you go to speak to Lena, she actually is not really accessible. She's not there to talk to you. If you push it any further, you just more or less get a very angry message from her that just simply says, "Where were you? When Carmine died, where were you?" And that last part was literally where, period, were, period, you, period. You know what I mean? And she does not speak to you.
I wouldn't push it after that.
Mm-hmm. And eventually you guys make your way back to the Vesuvius. You guys get there and are you landed. Your ship luckily is in good shape this time. You know, they could actually do
That's
some
true.
more.
The ship doesn't need repairs.
Yeah, they get to finish doing like the whole job and everything that they were working on before, refueling and tweaks, everything that they need to do, which is good news. Svedka is sadly still in a coma when they bring her onto the Vesuvius. Again, her vitals, but she's effectively a vegetable. But you're hoping that whatever facilities they have here, they can try to save her. But honestly, like speaking to the doctors, they're like, they literally say it's very, very unlikely they're going to be able to do anything. It's because obviously you would have acquired. They would just simply tell you, if I had to be honest with you, she's one of the first humans ever to show any form of biotic capacity, and she's older than most of the other ones. It's very likely they're keeping her alive because they need to learn, not because they intend to revive.
I'm not surprised.
Knowing that you were friends with Carmine, at least to some degree, they give like a endearing pat on the shoulder, and then go off into the Vesuvius for you guys to probably never see each other again throughout the rest of your military careers. The medical chief that was handling this, and on the Vesuvius itself, you're there finally and able to walk around and whatnot. The reports go out, everything's said and done, needs to happen. You receive medical treatment to make sure that you're okay. Unfortunately, because it was such an extended period of time between when you were originally treated and when you were, because of decisions made, your character, Rockwell, does in fact have permanent scarring on his face from the explosions that happened beforehand, the firing, the weapons you took, everything. You do in fact have permanent scars on your body for it. And you're kind of another ugly fucker. Like, I'm sorry, you're just kind of an ugly fucker.
And he's kind of okay with it.
Yeah,
It's one of those things where like they tell him and they're like, because it's like the future star is like, do you need an antidepressant? He's just like, no, I think I'm okay, and just like walks away.
I was gonna say you're kind of. I imagine your character is one of those. He's always in a small amount of pain now. Like he's always has his prescription of painkillers. Luckily, it's the future, so they're non-narcotic and non-addictive. But he always has his painkillers that he takes once 5 times a day to make sure that he's good to go. On the Vesuvius itself, you give your report. People accept the decisions that were made. They accept what's going on. And things that you find out while you're there is that a decision was made. Nobody can really do anything to 8, right? The plan of 8 or Tom.
Yeah, it doesn't want their help.
Doesn't want their help, and they would straight up open fire on them. Maybe even unify them against the Alliance, right? So they definitely aren't going to mess with 8 beyond ensuring that the ships going to and from the Great Before are handled. But they are sending ships to Moros to resolve this problem. They are in fact sending ships there to resolve the problem, make sure everything's been cleaned out, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So the Alliance is taking care of that. One of the other things that you do come across, and it's because you see, it's just one of those like, you have connections. You're very well connected. You know people, both in the Alliance and out, and you're continuing to build this reputation, et cetera, et cetera. You actually do come to find out that there is a crew of people that comes to the Vesuvius and gets hired to go to 8, but not as Alliance. They use the Vesuvius as a temporary dock and whatnot to have like a couple of meetings and then get their pay. These are like mercenaries to go to 8. And the reason why you ask questions and find out is because while also put on leave for an extended period of time because she fucking deserved it, Lena goes as a part of this mission and leaves. And what you come to understand is the vessel that's going to head to 8 is an old transport vessel. It's an old dropship transport vessel. It's designed for transporting a decent number of people. A really, really hardy life support system, lots of food stores, stuff like that. You check like the ship's itinerary of what it is that has on there, and you're like, this is clearly for transporting people. And Lena disappears on that transport vessel into the ship of 8 for at least some time. She sticks around just long enough to receive her medals. She sticks around just long enough to receive her awards, her promotion. And you even do read a report saying that the Special Operations, Special Forces, N, sends her an invitation for her to go and start training somewhat over at Jump Zero and a couple of other facilities where she needs to get her training. However, she more or less tells them, fuck off for a little while. I'll think about it.
Yeah.
And usually when somebody gets offered to join N training and to come out as an N1, I got you salivating.
It's like, I'd be good as an officer, I'd still be dirt shit below them.
So Ns are the only ones that get true and blue, fully trained to handle all forms of gravity that are sustainable by a human, as well as zero gravity. They're the ones that are trained to handle different pressures, different atmospheric pressures, different temperatures. They're the ones that are designed to handle every and any situation always. One N can usually take out, not an N1, but a single N is worth a handfuls of B's and D's put together, because the extent of their training, they get the best B's and D's and X's, and they train them up to become this. And she more or less tells them, at least for now, fuck off, I got shit to do. And so she disappears on the ship, and it's kind of a little bit of a talk that she does that this X did that. You know, she becomes an X5, I believe, before that happens. But moving on. You, however, of course, do get your own awards for what it was that happened. You finally receive your silver medal, you know, for your own actions in combat. You see that Private Johnson actually gets promoted, you know, for his actions and everything. He actually gets promoted to a Lance Corporal, and gets another medal of honor and whatnot for his actions that he did during this encounter. And Svedka also gets more medals thrown onto her chest and a promotion put onto her as well. I believe she was an E6 before. I'm going to check. She was an E6 before, a staff sergeant. She actually ends up getting a promotion to an E7, which is for this military almost there. There we go. A gunnery sergeant. So she actually becomes a gunnery sergeant, which is, like, again, just a huge promotion for her. But she's a vegetable. So, you know, that's kind of the last you heard of what's going on with her. And eventually you're able to make your way over to the schooling for officer training. Now tell me, Ollie, through all of this, Rockwell takes his scars. He finds out about his friends. He finds out where things are going. What is Rockwell thinking? What is Rockwell doing? What is he planning? What does he want to know? I'm sure there's a lot of questions in his mind. Please.
The actual, like, main thing, like, I imagine there's a lot of conversation sort of at him at this time, is just like he's just waiting to go back to, or go to the academy. It's like, if anyone asks, like, what are you doing after all? It's like, going to the academy, constantly. But at the same time, he's still sending those messages outside of Alliance frequencies, ones that are encoded to not get picked up by the Alliance all around him. While he does have a little more respect, actually a lot more respect for especially like the Alliance chain of command, just because I was in charge of people and I fucked up enough that it fucked other people up, right? He still is kind of a little untrustworthy of the whole Alliance, so keeps sending those messages off, keeps sending contacts, especially when he joins the academy, when he starts learning to starts becoming an officer. But it's almost one of those things where he would talk about it. He wouldn't shy away from explaining what happened on the planet, and he'd probably explain it a couple of times to different people. But, you know, it's almost like not much has changed, even though a lot has changed. He's just kind of still going. Yep. And he definitely, like, as soon as possible, takes shore leave back to Mars, see his family.
Okay, so let me take this a step back for a second. For one, the Volus actually reach out to you specifically to thank you for your services and the fact that you were able to run down and find out exactly who these are, because unfortunately they were able to discover through wake signatures and whatnot, and through the like more or less VIN plates, through the identification of the ships that were involved in this, that they have been going off and on into Volus trading planets, like planets that are generally controlled by or have, and they've been using their network to try to smuggle out this red sand, whatever it is. They weren't smuggling people at all, strangely enough. They weren't smuggling people. The people eventually you come to discover were being smuggled to Moros for the sake of tweaking the compound and making alterations to it and using as test subjects. they were smuggling out this red compound.
Hmm.
So they thank you for that. They inform you that, you know, you've got, within certain members of them, you've got kind of like a friend in them, you know, if you come to them for aid. And they will certainly keep you in their books. You know what I mean? It's kind of like one of those, they owe you a favor, this particular clan. They owe you a favor. Another thing that happens prior to you're actually going off to the academy is, of course, Carmine gets his Medal of Honor as well. He, of course, gets, you know, obviously you get a Purple Heart. They have to get the Purple Hearts or whatever. They sustaining injury while in line of combat. He also gets promoted. So he goes from being, I believe he was an E4, which is a corporal, to an E5, which is a sergeant. And he also goes from being, I believe it was a B4 to a B5 for what it was that he had done. And then it was funny because that's what happens while he's on the Stalingrad, that this information comes through, the ceremony is going to happen. But when his funeral finally comes about, do you actually go to his funeral?
Yeah.
Okay. So you actually go.
I would speak. It'd be like a movie. I'd be at the back of the room, not sitting down.
So you wouldn't so you wouldn't like speak or anything like that.
I wouldn't draw attention to myself.
Okay.
It would be one of those things where people would be like, "Is that his commanding officer, the one with the scar?" People would talk about it, and he wouldn't go out of his way to be like, "I'm hiding," but he just wouldn't be very social at the whole thing.
So Carmine was actually born on Earth, unlike most people, like you're born on Mars. Carmine was actually born on Earth. So you go to
Lena
Earth.
and Carmine were Earth peeps.
Well, yeah. So you've been to Earth before, but very rarely, right? And so when you go to Earth, and you please, Rick, what country or region or whatever is Carmine from? I know Lena was, I think, from Minnesota or something like that, but do you know where Carmine was from?
I haven't really thought about that much in detail.
Earth's a big place.
Yeah, she's from Montana. Lena's from Montana.
M's.
I can imagine him being a Scot, actually.
Scotsman.
Yeah.
Cool. So, so when you go to you know, the Highlands of Scotland, and you see just like the beautiful site that's there. I mean, you've never been to Scotland before. You've never seen how gorgeous this is. The rolling hills with the rocks, sometimes huge rocks kind of like jutting out of them. The way that the sky seems to be both low and high and stretch forever at points. I mean, it's absolutely beautiful. There's this constant moisture in the air. It's one of those, like, where it is that you've sustained your most injuries, it always like creaks there while you're here. But at the same time, just that musty, cold smell and like the almost like, it's like a sea breeze without being an ocean there, that you have on your face while you're here. It's just amazing. It's beautiful. It's clean. You know, this feels pure. It's funny because, like, you're not from Earth, and so you identify yourself as, you know, Mars. That's home.
Yeah.
But when you're in, like,
I'm actually born on Earth, which is the funny thing.
Oh, your character was born on Earth?
I'm born on Earth, but like moved when I was like 5 or something.
Oh, so very young. So it's one of those things where when you're in places like this, and it's just like serene and quiet out in one of those old grave sites. When it's serene and quiet here, it's just, you feel more human than you usually do. It's just the sun beating down on you. It's just, you feel like it's peace, you know? So anyways, at the ceremony, something actually catches you off guard. They actually announced that through his actions and everything, you'd seen all the reports beforehand. But one of the things that catch you off guard is he actually, I had said his rank incorrectly before, but the promotion that he actually gets, that Carmen actually gets from what had happened here, is he actually jumps up to an E6. He was actually an E3 before, just through sheer self-sacrifice. The fact that so many humans were saved because of his actions, everything that was done, he actually jumps up to an E6, which is a staff sergeant. And it's like huge honors are sent to his family. That's a bigger cut that goes, you know, of like whatever. And all those things. And it's just like a huge fucking honor, making him, I believe, the highest ranked member of the military in his family. And certainly until you become, until your promotion goes through, your schooling's done, certainly higher rank than you would have been.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. I literally, like, as soon as it'd be like, son of a bitch, damn, Ham got promoted higher than me.
So
but like, not like annoyed,
Just
just
like
like
beyond the grave.
just like
It's one of those things too where you as Rockwell are not a fucking idiot. The reason why this would happen, the reason why something like this would happen is usually because there's political something involved in it. So Carmine, what he did, who he did it for, how he did it, he appeased certain admirals somewhere. For some reason, he tickled them the right way for this to happen. And Rockwell is not going to be able to get to the bottom of what this is, but he knows that there's something somewhere that was linked to this.